Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm going to do my February wrap-up. So some of you may know that I got married this month. I got married in the middle of February in Edinburgh to Scottish husband. He's been upgraded. When I started blogging, he was Scottish boyfriend, so we have had quite a journey here. But it was amazing and it was wonderful, and I'm not gonna talk about it here, but it was great. I had the best time. It was awesome. Despite the fact that I did get married, I read quite a few books this month, and February is a funny one because it is a shorter month. I somehow seem to every year fall into a time vortex in February, and I just don't know where the month goes, and that was especially bad this month because wedding stuff, but I don't know where the month went. I don't really know what happened. Despite that, I did manage to read, I'm saying 7 books, even though it was technically 6 books, but I had like 30 pages of my sort of last book to read today, and I finished it today, the 1st of March. So I'm gonna count that because February is a short month and I read most of it in February, so whatever. We're gonna say it's 7. I read 7 books this month. I'm gonna try to make this a little bit shorter than a lot of my wrap-up videos are. So a couple of these I am going to do full reviews for, so I'll talk about that when we get to them. But I ended up really enjoying most of these books that I read this month. I think all of them I gave 4 stars. Or like 4 stars or maybe higher because I'm kind of torn on one of them. But this was a really, really good month for reading, and I'm very pleased with that. I didn't realize how good of a month for reading this was until just now. So the very first book that I read is one that I have had on my TBR for a long time. I bought it on my friend Judith's recommendation because she really enjoyed it, and the phrase bisexual necromancer just really sold it to me. This is Reign of the Fallen, and this is by Sarah Glenn Marsh. So this book kind of freaks my camera out, so I might put it down at some point. But I love this cover. I love the kind of like shiny pearlescent cover. I love this. So I basically wanted this because of the cover. I ended up reading it. I did the audiobook, and for the first time, I would not recommend the audiobook. It's not very good. It's just okay. And the narrator makes some really bizarre choices with like accents and stuff. So I don't know if I'd recommend the audiobook. Reign of the Fallen takes place in a land called Carthia, and our main character is Odessa. She is one of the master necromancers of Carthia. The land is ruled by the same king over and over and over again. He is undead, and every time that he begins to kind of transform into a shade, which is like a kind of corrupted spirit, kind of horrifying monster, she kills him, and they go into the land of the dead, they bring him back, and he rules again. So because of this, there is no progress in the land of Carthia. So there's no science, there's no invention, everything stays the same way. And there's lots of different classes of magic, there's lots of sort of different areas of the kingdom, there's a really great class system. I really, really enjoyed this book. I loved how sort of in-depth it was with that class system, with the magic system. And I feel like she told the story in a way that was really, really well done because she weaves a lot of the world building into the narrative. There's no info dumping here, even with, you know, numerous different classes of magic, the way that necromancy works, all of this. She did it so well. Main character Odessa is really interesting because she's not nice. She's not a great person. She's super selfish. She ends up kind of spiraling into addiction, and she gets called out for her behavior, and I love that so much. She also has friends. Oh my god, she has a friend group. She has a little gang of necromancers, which I really, really loved. I loved seeing their somewhat cheesy interactions with each other. They felt very realistic to me. So I am going to talk about the one thing that I had kind of a problem with in this book. Very, very briefly. It's going to have kind of minor spoilers, so if you don't want to see any of those, then go ahead and skip ahead, but this is gonna have some spoilers, so we're gonna start now. So the love interest. First off, we have Evander, who I found really, really flat and boring, unfortunately. He's her long-term love, her great love. They have been together for years, and they have secret love and everything like that. He dies, and it's very sad and tragic, and she spirals into addiction. Then she meets this female love interest, which is great, because I liked her. Her female love interest was awesome. However, this girl is Evander's sister, and that didn't sit well with me. Not only is the fact that they are brother and sister, but also the fact that like they had been together for so long and now she's like dating his sister, and it's never really addressed at all. It's just like, Evander will be fine with this. Would he though? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. That just didn't sit well with me. That was the only thing that really kept this book from being a higher than a 4-star read, because I did indeed give this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. It's super fun. You can tear through it in like a day, and it was really, really great. I'm going to pick up Song of the Dead, which is the sequel, which has just come out very soon, and I'm really, really excited for it because while Reign of the Fallen is very much a self-contained story, it does leave things open for another adventure, so I'm very excited for that. We took a left turn for my next book. I read The Armored Saint by Mike Cole. This is a novella from Tor Books, and I have really enjoyed Mike Cole's Twitter shenanigans for a very long time with Sam Sykes, who's another fantasy author, and I wanted to give him a try. I spotted this in Waterstones in July, I think, of last year, because I bought it at the same time that I bought the most recent Becky Chambers book, Record of a Spaceborne Few. And I didn't pick this up until January, and it took me forever to read because it is a book that should be savored. I really enjoyed this. The concept is quite simple. This book feels almost like it could have been ripped from our own history, but it has magic in it too. So it follows a girl named Heloise, and she is a 16 or so year old girl, and she's living in poverty in a village in this sort of world that's ruled over by this kind of almost like inquisition. So she is so beaten down, and there are certain events that lead to her just kind of losing it, and she's going to fight back against this horrible, horrible regime, these men who sort of use religion as a way to persecute people. There is a content warning for gore because it is a very kind of gory fantasy novel. There's some descriptions of some injuries and stuff like that that people might not enjoy, but there's also a kind of content warning for homophobia, because this book takes place in a world where this kind of religious order has taken over, and Heloise is a 16-year-old girl who has come to realize she is in love with her best friend, who is female, and kind of dealing with a world that doesn't accept that kind of thing. I thought that especially the way that Mike Cole treated her sexuality was very, very delicate and very well done. I really, really enjoyed Heloise as a character. I really loved this world. I thought this was fantastic, and I have also bought the sequel, Queen of Crows, and I'm very excited to read that. The last book, I think, comes out in October of this year. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I might boost this to 4.5 maybe, because the more I talk about it, the more I love it. The next book that I read is a book that I received way back in July because I won this at Yelk, and it's been sitting on my shelf forever. This book came out in February, and I was like, okay, I should probably read it. This is The Familiars by Stacey Hall. The Familiars is a historical fiction novel. It is an adult novel, and it takes place in the 17th century in Lancashire, I believe, in England. And it follows a young woman named Fleetwood Shuttleworth, I believe, and she is kind of the very young bride of the local sort of wealthy aristocratic man. They live in this giant manor house, and she is unable to carry a child to term. She's had many miscarriages, she's pregnant again, and she fears that she might not live through this pregnancy. So she seeks out a midwife named Alice Gray, and unfortunately for both of them, the witch trials are happening. So there's all this sort of hysteria around witchcraft and witches, and of course women who were in these positions as midwives and wise women were the very first targets for the people who are hunting down and seeking scapegoats and kind of persecuting women as witches. So this is not a happy book. This book will make you very uncomfortable, it'll make you very angry, but it is fantastic. I really enjoyed this, and I believe this is a debut novel. I'm actually going to go ahead and buy myself a hardcover copy of this book because I really enjoyed it, and I want to support more amazing historical fiction about women. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this one. It will make you angry, it'll make you so incredibly furious and uncomfortable, but it is so good and it's really well done. I am terrible for sticking to TBRs, but I did actually manage to read a book off of my February TBR. This is one that Dax picked. It's one of my cats, so if you haven't seen that, I'll link that video down below. But I read Everlist by Sarah Holland, and I picked this one as something that's been kind of lurking on my TBR for a long time that came out last year. So Everlist is a young adult fantasy novel, and I was really surprised by how much I liked this. I figured I'd enjoy it, but I thought that kind of, it's one of those books that treats time as a currency, and I feel like somehow that didn't feel very original, so I assumed that I wouldn't enjoy this, but I really, really did, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Everlist follows a girl named Jules, and Jules is living in a country in which time is a currency. You can have time extracted from your blood, and through an alchemical process, it's stamped into coins, into blood iron. Naturally, as I'm sure you can imagine, the very, very wealthy live forever, and they dissolve these blood irons into tea, and they can live for hundreds and hundreds of years, and the poor live for a very, very short amount of time. So Jules is very poor, but she goes to work on the Everlist estate because the heir is going to be marrying the queen's heir. So it's this huge, like, political marriage that's going to be happening. She's going to earn a lot of money, earn a lot of time, and save her father's life because he is very nearly bled dry. And of course, things go terribly, terribly wrong from there. I really enjoyed the world building in this book because she combines some really, really interesting concepts in terms of the world building with the magic and everything, but also myth, which plays a big, big role in this book. I just thought that it was so incredibly well done, and there's a lot of stuff that I can't talk about without spoilers, so I'm gonna just kind of leave it there. I really liked Jules. She's kind of getting very, very close to being my kind of ideal YA heroine. She's very clever, she's very smart, and she's very driven. She cares a lot for other people, but she's not kind of sappy. And I really love the fact that she had this drive not only to sort of be curious and figure out what's happening on the estate, but also to earn enough money to save her father to help her friends. This is another YA book where our heroine has friends. I hope that this is a trend that sticks around because I love seeing friendships in these books. I really liked Aina, I really liked Caro. I just thought that this was so wonderfully done. I really enjoyed this book. It was the perfect book to read on the train ride home because it was like 5 hours, and I ended up really enjoying this. I'm gonna go ahead and get the sequel, Evermore, even though I've heard it's not quite as good by people who really enjoyed Everlist. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Thumping good read. Highly recommended. I really like this. Next is my audiobook read for the month. So unlike Reign of the Fallen, I really, really enjoyed the audiobook and I would highly recommend it. I have been wanting to read this for a long time, for a lot of reasons that I'll go into later. And I was surprised by how much I liked it because I've heard very mixed things about this. I read The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This is another one that freaks out my camera, so I'm gonna go ahead and like put it down for now. But The Bone Season, if you don't know, is actually kind of one of the very first of the kind of modern proper YA books that I ever heard of, because Samantha Shannon made a huge splash with this book and it is fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. It is very confusing. And although I liked it, I'm still really confused as to what's completely going on and how things work, but I enjoyed the ride so, so much. It's kind of this weird mix between fantasy and science fiction and alternate history and dystopian. It works so incredibly well and it's super cool. It's kind of complicated, but our main character is named Paige and she is living in Scion, London. It's this kind of alternate version of London in the 1800s. I can't remember when, but in the 1800s, one of the kings kind of, I guess, introduced clairvoyancy into England and kind of changed the world forever. So clairvoyants are unnaturals, and of course Paige is a clairvoyant. She is a dream walker. She can enter other people's dreamscapes. Don't ask, because that's a long story. She's part of this sort of criminal organization, and she ends up getting captured, and things get super freaking weird from there, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. When it like turns from sort of like alternate history, kind of dystopia, to like full-on science fiction with aliens and stuff, I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I was totally on board with it. I think one of the reasons that I was totally on board for it is that London's kind of a secondary location for this book. Oxford is where this book really takes place, and I live in Oxford, so it was really awesome. You can see at the beginning. It was really awesome to see like where all of these locations actually are. So you have like Magdalen Bridge, and we have like the Broad, which is like Broad Street. Like, it's super cool, and I love books where you can actually identify the real places in them. I just thought it was so good. I have no idea what's going on in this series and where it's gonna go, but I'm really, really interested and I'm totally on board. The audiobook narrator is so, so incredibly good. She has this beautiful, beautiful voice, and I don't think I could like possibly review this book or talk about it more because I have no idea, but it was awesome. I gave The Bone Season 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this. I'm going to continue with the series, which I have somewhere back here. I have all 3 books that are out right now. I bought them all and I read this because I am so excited to read Priory of the Orange Tree, which you'll see in my February book haul. So I wanted to get a taste for her writing, and I'm really glad that I did, and I'm now even more hyped for Priory. And the very last book that I read this month, technically I finished today, the 1st of March. I'm counting it, as I said before, as a February read, because I read most of it in the month of February, and it came out on the 28th of February. This is The Raven Tower by Ann Leckie. I really love Ancillary Justice, and I need to finish that series. Her sci-fi is amazing and super mind-bending and twisty and weird and odd, and I knew that I would get that from her fantasy as well. This is her very first fantasy book. It's weird, it has philosophy, it has all kinds of crazy stuff. It has like gods pondering the beginning of the world and how the human body works, and it's like super weird, but I loved it. I thought it was great. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I might actually raise it to maybe 4.5 or, 4.25 because I really enjoyed this. I think it's gonna stick with me for quite a while. So those are the 7 books that I read in the month of February. I'm honestly surprised that I managed to get 7 done. However, 2 of those were audiobooks, which really helped. In the comments below, I would love to know what you read in the month of February. If you've read any of these books as well, or if they're on your TBR, I'd love to hear from you. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.